weekly press conference. With me, as usual, is our General Secretary. We'll be reading 3 statements, after which we'll be taking the questions. Yes?
Good morning. Let's go there. The first statement reads as follows. The 2017 budget is to be laid in the National Assembly today, Monday, November 28, at 2016 at 2 p.m. Both the President and the Minister of Finance have given sneak previews of what is to be expected in the 2017 budget without providing any details with respect to the measures that will be announced in the course of the Minister's presentation. The 2017 budget is being presented at a time when the economy continues to be in a tailspin. Confidence is at an all-time low. Money is not circulating. People are growing impatient and becoming increasingly angry. The private sector, which is touted as the engine of growth, is limping along, not knowing where the country is heading, while both local and foreign direct investments have dried up and has become a thing of the past. All of these negative developments, coupled with rampant corruption, nepotism, cronyism, and incompetence, has further compounded the situation in the country, resulting in an atmosphere of despair and loss of confidence in the establishment of the Granger-led APNU-AFC administration. And notwithstanding all the high-sounding assurances and the denial mode expressed by President Granger in respect to the crime situation, nevertheless, not a single day passes without the occurrence of a crime committed with the use of a firearm resulting in the loss of life, limb, or property. The 2015 budget was flaunted by the Granger administration as, quote, a fresh approach to a good life in a green economy. And in 2016, it was a good life beckons. A tour de horizon of the state of the economic and social conditions obtaining in the country would reveal that the fresh approach has turned out to be an approach riddled with incompetence, mismanagement, and corruption. And not a single act by the government seems to be resonating with the basic interests of the Guyanese working people. And the promises of a good life has turned out to be a life of misery, hopelessness, and anger. The good life has become meaningless for the Guyanese working people. In contrast, the good life has become a boon for the exclusive upper echelons of the APNU-AFC and its satraps. And the green economy that the government is fond of prattling so much about is turning out to be a pipe dream. Based on international commitments made by the Granger administration, it will find it either impossible or too onerous to realize its commitments long before the next elections. As one trade unionist had pointed out, quote, a green economy is not only about planting trees and removing garbage, it is grounded in time-honored principles, values, and laws, end of quote. And the efforts by government to dangle before the eyes of unsuspecting Guyanese the prospects of an oil bonanza before the 2020 elections is aimed at duping the Guyanese electorate that all things will be bright and beautiful. The PPP would wish this to be so, since it will improve the lives of the Guyanese people. At the same time, however, the truth is, so long as the APNU-AFC is in government, everything will be done to destroy and deny the Guyanese people the democratic right to elect a government of their choice, and by extension, their right to have a life characterized by peace, progress, and prosperity. From the fresh approach, Guyanese ended up with a stale, uninspiring, and lackluster approach. Refreshing what has become a stale approach in 2017 budget will pose a major challenge to the Granger administration. The next statement reads as follows. The People's Progressive Party rejects the contention by President Granger to the effect that, quote, there was nothing criminal about the Durban Park project, end of quote. This specious justification advanced by the President in respect to this particular project is tantamount to a cover-up of horrendous proportions. It is a national scandal beyond the imagination of any decent-minded Guyanese. The party notes that this is the umpteenth time the President has had to stick his neck out in defense of his untamed and get-rich-quick ministers and government cronies who are developing a reputation for becoming involved in one scandal after another as they go and attract national attention. The last scandal being the Norton Success Street drugs bun, which the President had to condone, especially after his party Congress was bold enough to shun the national outcry condemning the subject minister's involvement in the scandal and for misleading the National Assembly. Dressing up a series of breaches of Section 16 of the Fiscal Management and Accountability Act and Section 216 of the Constitution as, quote unquote, an unusual course of action, end of quote, claiming that the establishment of a company was expedient at the time and is not a secret one, are all excuses and justifications for a series of illegal acts to plunder the force account at the Ministry of Infrastructure. Had it not been for a motion by the parliamentary opposition on Private Members' Day, this revelation would not have seen the light of day. The establishment of a ghost company, branded Homestretch Development, Inc., populated with persons close to the government and a cabinet minister, was never made public by the Granger administration until such questions were asked in the National Assembly. This brings into focus the transparency and accountability deficit of the APNU-AFC administration. Further, to this day, the population is not the wiser as regards the aims, as regards the names of the private citizens who came forward to, quote unquote, give their time and resources. The government has failed to reveal to the National Assembly who are these private citizens that came forward to give their time and resources. This gives the lie about budgetary uncertainties no one knows how much time and how much resources were given to this project. The PPP notes that, as usual, the Granger administration has fallen back on the thread-worn excuse about what the PPP did while it was in government as a reason for its failure to be transparent and accountable now that it is in government. Little does the APNU AFC government realize that such specious arguments mean little or nothing to the people of Guyana. What the people would like to know is precisely the answers to the questions posed in the National Assembly by the PPPC members of Parliament. The last statement reads as follows. The People Progressive Party calls on government to pay the traditional and additional end-of-year 1-month tax-free salary to ranks of the joint services and the Custom Anti-Narcotic Unit in anticipation of the coming Christmas holidays. Recently, President Granger, in an address to soldiers on the occasion of the Guyana Defense Force's 51st anniversary route march, stated, quote, "We are proud in our ability to rely on you year in, year out to protect our borders," end of quote. The President expressed government's attitude to ranks of the GDF and encouraged them to, quote, "keep on soldiering, to keep making sure that Guyana is a place for prosperity," end of quote. And recently, in his weekly public interest television program, President Granger stated that the money invested by government in the security sector was, quote, "well spent," implying that he was pleased with the performance of the joint services. And the minister responsible for the Guyana Police Force had publicly declared that, quote, "significant progress has been made in the area of improving security," end of quote. Ramjatan expressed satisfaction with the performance of the Guyana Police Force, the Guyana Prison Service, and the Guyana Fire Service. He could not have done otherwise. From all that has been said and done by the Granger administration, it appears that rewards are in order for services rendered in 2016 by the joint services. It is to be recalled that on assumption to office, the Granger administration knocked out the traditional and additional 1-month tax-free salary paid to ranks of the joint services, while awarding the hierarchy of the APNU AFC hefty salary increases, much to the annoyance and displeasure of ranks of the joint services and their families, who look forward to the annual top-up, which was put in place by the PPPC administration since 2002. Instead, the APNU AFC paid out a miserly 50,000 tax-free bonus to the joint services and all public servants. At that time, ranks had complained that, quote, "we have to make sacrifices, like risking our lives and being away from our families," end of quote. The PPP recalls that in less than 1 year after assuming office and claiming that the PPP had left an empty treasury, the APNU AFC nevertheless found $1.5 billion to pay public servants, but at the same time left sugar workers empty-handed for the first time in several years without receiving the annual production incentive, API. The PPP calls on the Granger administration to reinstate the annual and traditional tax-free 1-month salary to the joint services. In addition, the government must urge Gaisuco to reinstate the annual production incentive to sugar workers and to pay out this year an increase on the 50,000 end-of-year Christmas bonus to all public servants. Public servants must stand in solidarity with sugar workers, and the joint services must stand in solidarity with public servants and sugar workers, all of whom toil year in, year out, either in the services or the productive sector, and who deserve a better and bigger slice of the national cake so as to improve their daily livelihoods. Thank you.
Those were the statements. We'll open it now for questions. Who will be the first?
Eddie Rodney.
Yes, Eddie.
Yes, Mr. Diaz. In the past, previous years, during the PPC time, anytime budgets are being presented, there's usually, or there were, a series of consultations. On this occasion, and perhaps even last year, to the best of your knowledge, was there any consultations of the kind which the PPC engender or engaged with whilst they were in office?
Who?
Consultations, talking about this present administration.
Whether there were consultations with
On the
us?
budget, yes, with the PPP or any other affiliate of the PPP.
No, we didn't have any consultations, you know, because we have been asking them to submit a number of documents for us to study before going into any consultations with the Minister of Finance. We don't want to go empty-handed. We don't want to go ill-informed. We don't want to go with a shopping list for which there's no, basis for asking for those things to be done. And that could only be done if we have, a set of documents in our hands, which we've been asking the minister to provide us over and over again. But they've been reluctant to do so. In fact, they haven't done so. So we don't see any point in going into a consultation, shooting in the dark, so to speak, and asking for things which we ourselves may not be realistic. Some may be realistic, some may be unrealistic. But let us see the documents so we can make an informed request and consultation at the Ministry of Finance.
What about other stakeholders such as the Private Sector Commission?
Well, I've been reading in the media, consultations have been taking place between private sector people, other stakeholders with the Ministry of Finance, and they have been, advancing, issues that are of interest to the sectors and so forth. But you see, we are a responsible party. We're the next government. Come 2020, we're likely to be in government again. So we can't go, in a negotiations or in a consultation, acting in a highly irresponsible manner.
Next.
Mr. Ruby, greetings and thanks. You said that the party rejects the contention that there was nothing criminal on the Durban Park matter. Could you point to which part of the Durban Park matter is criminal? What element is criminal? And if it is criminal, will the party be taking any legal action?
Well, I pointed out, and in fact, Mr. Ali, Irfan Ali, in the Parliament, and I have repeated those things in my statement here where I said there have been breaches in Section 16 of the Fiscal Management and Accountability Act, and there's been a breach also of Section 216 of the Constitution. These are illegal acts. So if they have breached those two fundamental documents, one, the Constitution, and secondly, an act which guides or ought to guide a Minister of Finance in respect of the disbursement of public funds, then obviously, and then they've never either declared how much they've gotten, who contributed, etc., etc. This is what we consider to be acts of illegality. So that when the president says that there was nothing criminal about it, we think that in respect to the breaches in those acts, there is indeed, you know, an act of criminality there.
And in terms of penalties, what are some of the repercussions the government can face?
Well, the PBP will have to consider whether it wants to take these matters further. That's a matter for Mr. Anil Nandalal to make a recommendation on whether he considers we should take the matter further. So he and the leader of the opposition would have to engage in consultations on whether this matter, and of course the chief whip, whether this matter ought to be taken further. It will be brought to the executive if that is the case, and we will proceed from there on.
Next, Shabna.
I saw a statement where the president said that he would like to see more money allocated, apart from the $45 billion that was allocated over the time when AP and UFC presented budgets in Parliament. He said he's not satisfied with that amount. Well, obviously, if he's not satisfied with that amount, he should instruct his Minister of Finance to put in more money. I would like to see more money for community policing. The promises that were made by Ramjatan when he took away the vehicles from community policing and handed it to the Ghana Police Force were never returned. So Ramjatan, notwithstanding all the talk that he gave at number 70 village over the weekend, to the villagers and the family who were affected by this traumatic event, the loss of the husband, he's destroying the community policing organization. If you were to really get the facts from him, to me, the little that I know so far is that the extent to which we build community policing over the years and the amount of money we provided community policing with in order for them to be properly equipped, to be mobile enough, etc. All of that has been removed now from community policing. So that's one. I also saw the president speaking about having a much more proactive neighborhood police. Well, I'm not convinced that that is so. I think that is just empty talk, because when we check around, based on our party structure, we don't see any significant improvement in the number of community police, of neighborhood police that are walking around the villages, etc. What has happened is that in some divisions, regrettably, and I've been arguing against this for the years that I've been at Home Affairs, is that some divisions have incorporated neighborhood police within the police force, so that you have neighborhood police working full-time at police stations, which is wrong. They should not be. They are not part of the Ghana Police Force. But they do come under the force, but it doesn't mean to say that they are, they should be working at police stations, in the radio room, or at the inquiries desk, or anything like that. Their duty their job is to be in the villages patrolling. We have so many incidents of domestic violence. We just observe Domestic Violence Day. We have so many incidents of domestic violence. We have so many incidents of, criminal activities, of children wandering, and so forth and so on. The thing is that if you have community policing put back on its feet, as effective as it was during the previous civic administration, and if you have this neighborhood police similarly just as effective, they would be able to pick up these occurrences in the villages, in the streets, because they're there on a full-time basis. The thing is that whenever an incident takes place, you would read in the newspapers that the neighbors used to hear the man brutalizing the woman, that the neighbors used to hear the man beating up the woman. And all these things you would hear, the neighbors would hear or the families would know. But nobody ever reported it to the police station. And so what happens eventually is the woman is either violated, beaten to a pulp, or thrown out of the house with any belongings whatsoever. And then it comes to the public notice, when it has already been in the public. So I'm saying, and we've been saying as a government when we were there, that the local intelligence is what is important. The police would not always get the local intelligence because the police don't do like they used to do years ago, which is to have foot patrols in these villages and these neighborhoods. That's the task now, that as far as we're concerned, of community policing and the neighborhood police. They are the best sources of village intelligence, street intelligence, neighborhood intelligence. Take it to the police force or take it to the ministry that addresses these questions so that a quick intervention could be made. So I believe that in that area, interpersonal violence is a major area that should be given additional resources to, spread across the divisions of the Ghana Police Force. We have also been trying our best to improve the marine section of the Ghana Police Force. They've gotten additional boats. They need more boats if they're going to fight drugs effectively. They need more marine capacity. I saw the President also made reference to an airplane. Well, we've been talking about that for years, and he has been criticizing us when he was in the opposition about the need for air support for the Ghana Police Force. And he's been calling for the establishment of an air wing of the Ghana Police Force. Now that he's in the government after a year, he hasn't done a thing. Nothing he has done. All he's doing is talking about we need these things, we need those things, we need these things, and so forth. But let him instruct Jordan to put the money in the budget to improve the capacities of the security sector, whether it's Kanu, fire service, police, or prison service.
Yeah.
And incidentally, that fire and rescue service that I saw was commissioned recently, that was an initiative from the PPP. When we brought to the Parliament 3 bills, number 1, to change the name of the Ghana Police Force to the Ghana Police Service, they threw it out on the grounds that they're not going to support anything brought by the then Minister of Affairs to Parliament. We brought another bill calling for the name change to the Ghana Fire Service, to the Ghana Fire and Rescue Service. They threw that out on the same grounds. And then we brought another bill calling for a name change to the Ghana Prison Service, to the Ghana Prison and Correctional Service. They threw that out too. Now they're going back to all those things which we advocated and were putting in place in our time. They don't have any plans. What they're doing is that they are holding on to the coattails of the PVPC administration. They're piggybacking on all the plans of the PVPC administration because they're bereft of any new ideas. So they're sponging off what they used to say in school, cogging from the PVPC plans, especially those in the security sector.
Any other question? Yes, ready.
A follow-up on your first statement. Now, Minister Jordan, if the reports were read correct, has stated that due to the PPPC's Congress, the debate on the estimates and revenue for this current budget that is being led today will be deferred. In other words, with accommodation. Are you satisfied with that?
If I'm satisfied?
Yes. The position that the minister stated.
Well, they took a decision on their own. We didn't approach them and ask them to do it. You know, we didn't write the Minister of Finance, no, we didn't write the President requesting a deferral, because remember they were to do it on December the 5th, and they brought it forward now. But we didn't write making any request for that to happen. They did that on their own. Minister Jordan mentioned it in the Parliament. We listened to what he had to say, and we have adjusted our plans accordingly. We were always taking into consideration the strong possibility that issues pertaining to the budget debate and issues pertaining to the work of the Committee of Supply could impact on our, one, preparations for our Congress, and two, the holding of the Congress. You know, the PPP is an experienced political party. So, you know, we always know when to adjust, how to adjust, and what is required for us to ensure that whatever activities we plan comes off successfully.
Just a follow-up. Given the criticisms from the political opposition that an early budget will not only limit the PPP's ability to scrutinize the figures and be able to debate properly, and possible space for abuse by the government in the last several weeks, given that position, do you think that the comment made by Minister Jordan that, okay, an early budget was a concession to the people, a fair one, or for political capital?
I think that's part of their game plan. But they've been making a lot of noises about bringing early budgets. But as we know, there are billions of dollars that are left unspent in the 2016 budget, right? So they're rolling over some of the projects to the 2017 budget. There's still a lot of money spent to be spent not only on projects, but in a number of government agencies and departments. So this haste to bring another budget, I don't know to impress who, but to try or to make an effort, one, to pretend they're efficient, two, to give the opposition to complicate the procedures in the Parliament, and to complicate issues in relation to the 2016 and even the 2015 budget, because the 2016 budget has problems in the 2016 budget, and the 2016 budget will obviously have problems in the 2017 budget. So all of those issues will come out in the speech and in the consideration of the estimates in the Committee of Supply. So I believe, sorry.
No, you're saying the criticisms of the PP stand, and that the comments made by Minister Jordan that an early budget is a concession to the PPP. What was your comment on that specifically?
Well, I don't know about it being a concession to the PPP. I think it is more, we're prepared to debate a budget at any point in time. So whether it's a concession to us or not, it really doesn't matter, because we are always ready to debate a speech and to participate in the Committee of Supply, consideration of the estimates. So I don't think there's any concession that he's making to the PPP. He's seeking to use the holding of a party Congress, of our party Congress, to appear magnanimous. Well, if that's their view, well, so be it, but we have our own view on those matters.
Any other questions?
Yes,
Yes, Eddie.
of the budget, of the statement. Congress, in the past, whilst the PPP was in government, there was no problem for the media attending Congress, either from Georgetown or regional correspondents. Now it's a different situation. As far as you're aware, has everything been put in place for an adequate input of the media, including the regional, sub-regional media representation of Congress?
Well, we invited the media to the opening session, as is traditional. The media will be invited to the opening session, which is a public session. After that, the rest of the Congress is internal, private, for the delegation observers to deliberate on a number of matters which the leadership of the party has and will settle on.
What the, closing, she want to know about the closing. Do we ever get the media for the closing?
No, the closing session is also internal. Yeah, but usually would issue a statement at the end of the Congress.
Is there any other questions? If not, ladies and gentlemen, let me thank you all very much.